in the days after King Arthur. The Gathering. Life was not easy in the Dark Ages. One was lucky to make it through the day alive and gain a good meal. And so, perhaps pleasure was worth a little more relatively, than it is today. Sometimes we look back to the good old days of 50 years ago, which we always think were better than today. And perhaps they were in some ways, but they were also the times of polio and long working hours. I prefer to look neither forward nor backward, and like to think that today is the best of all days. When we walk the woods, there are always some who look only down the road at where they will soon be, and when they get there, they are found to be looking further still. Here and now is the moment. We can seize the moment or let it pass, but it is seldom fruitful to attempt to run after the moment and recapture it. But memories are a different matter. They are sweet, and we shall not forget Camelot, for it is a part of us now. A gathering takes place in Camelot, the likes of which has not been seen in many years. It is a combination victory celebration and belated Christmas festival. All of our characters are present, including the old man who we suspect is Merlin. Winter has returned in force, and as seems to happen on winter's deepest nights, a carriage drawn by horses wearing silver shoes appears and travels once around Camelot. And this time, because it is a special time, it enters the great hall through the King's Gate, a forbidden gate to all but kings. Arthur's spirit appears in Camelot beside that of his beautiful Queen Guinevere. They are together at last. Prophecies. Merlin takes to the floor, and all recognize his three-headed staff. However, his aged body is beyond recognition. Ern knows Merlin as the old man who had helped him through the winter storm, and he drops to his knees. Memories from over half a life ago return and flood the great hall like a warm blanket. Arthur is both resplendent and ghostly in his crimson robe and smiles at the good progress that has been made since his death.
I have come for Arthur and Guinevere, come to take their spirits to Excalibur, a world far from here. Do not be concerned when my decrepit shell of a body crumples to the ground as I leave. I must also travel in spirit. Perhaps the powers of the night will once again give me youth. Meanwhile, I have but my immortality. Now I shall address you all one by one. Percival, once squire of Lancelot, Grail Knight, inheritor of Arthur's throne, nephew of Arthur, Knight of the Round Table, king and lover of all in this nation, your search for love continues, but beware of the witch. 3 witches remain in Britain, 1 is good, 2 are bad. And remember that it is not easy for a king to pursue a woman. They covet your power and throne. It is hard to know their hearts. Soon your friends must leave, and you should take on a squire and continue to train the next generation of knights, for there may be troubled days ahead in 10 years or so. Alexis, daughter of Lancelot and Guinevere, Queen of Lancelot's lands in Gaul, Queen of the Mystical Isles, wife of Gilene. Do you remember the pledge you made atop Lancelot's tomb with Percival and Guinevere, to meet again in the Great Hall and also in heaven? Well, here you are in the Great Hall, only heaven now remains. The pledge that once seemed impossible is now quite possible. Ern, King of New Scandia, King of Thule, son of Valor, Knight of the Round Table, brother of Gilene, husband of Maud, once squire to Gawain. Take care of my daughter Maud, and beware the danger that awaits in Thule. Taliesin, my son, I leave you what little power and virtue I have left. From my own demon sire I gained my power, but my mother was a saintly woman, a nun in fact. And it is from her that we've received our virtue, and thus we have used our powers wisely. Maud, my daughter, restorer of Merlin, Queen of Thule and New Scandia, wife of Ern, my virtue remains in you as well, and I wish you well in your chosen mortal life. Gillan, king of the Mystical Isles, brother of Ern and son of Valor, once squire to Gawain, knight of the Round Table, husband of Alexis, you have found contentment, and it shall forever be yours.
And now Merlin's voice begins to fade as he pulls Ghislaine aside and says,
It is time for the swinging sword to be passed. So it has gone from Valor to Percival to you. It must now be passed on to Ern. Twin to Excalibur, the gods have let us keep it. Gawain, child of the sun, knight of the Round Table, breaker of women's hearts and men's heads, the finest knight alive, defender of heaven and protector of earth, you have outlived all the original knights, and your remaining days shall be pleasant. Remember the four greatest things of value. First, people. Second, the natural earth. Third and fourth, inseparable, adventure and love. If we know not these things of value, then life has nothing for us but dread and drudgery. Years from now, when this castle turns to dust, this castle that I built by magic, remember Camelot. When the journey seems too long, remember Camelot. Savor these moments together. When the shadow of death is near, remember Camelot. When you are faced with evil versus good, remember Camelot. It is the doom of man that he forgets. Goodbye, I leave you now.
The celebration ends as the spirits fade from sight. Some days pass, and many prepare for journeys that will take them from our story for many a day. Percival gives good Prince Ern, now King of Thule, a last embrace, knowing well that the coming duties of kingship are more than enough of a burden for any man to handle. The visitors now depart through Camelot's 7 gates. Percival is atop the highest parapet. He looks out and is proud, for these are all his friends, and it is good to have lived.